name is Bob Borchard, back at you again from Old Town Mariposa in the historic Mariposa Hotel. And this show today is being brought to you by Bet's Gold Coin, family-friendly sports tavern and restaurant in downtown Mariposa, where you can actually dine under the clipper ships. These are 1890 murals that reflect some of the early pioneer passengers. At any rate, I have with me today an old friend, Ron Loya, from the History Center, and, oh, in case anybody missed it, this is Clamper Week. Does anybody know what a clamper is? Maybe, Ron, you could explain that a little bit for us.
Well, what I think Bob is asking is to explain the organization of the ancient and honorable order of E-Clampus Vitus. And this is an organization that started well before the gold rush. It started in West Virginia, but the legend has it that it actually began long before the United States was ever formed.
Well, before Western civilization. I think this goes all the way back to Adam, right?
It goes back to Adam. In fact, the legend is Adam was the first clamper.
I've heard that, and I believe it. Ronald Reagan was a clamper, too.
He sure was.
Is that the only president that has been a clamper? Or the only one we talk about?
Yeah, pretty much. The only one we're talking about. But, you know, all the California governors up until Pat Brown were clampers.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was a clamper, as I understand.
I don't know about Arnold, but I know that Clint Eastwood is a current clamper.
Current clamper. Well, that would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure would.
Ron, when we talk about our events, you know, people in Mariposa, people come and visit us, they see us walking up and down the street carrying a flag in our parades. That's kind of a famous flag, by the way. Maybe you could tell us a little story about that flag.
Well, I don't have much information on the flag. If you were to ask the current humbug or the boys up in Sonora who have care of that flag, they could probably tell you a lot more than I. But the parades that we've been having up and down the Main Street Mariposa have been going on since the early 20s. And we have a lot of accounts of some pretty raunchous doings in Mariposa County.
What exactly is a doings?
Doings is where...
I remember this is a secret organization,
right,
so we can't...
And we're going to keep this a little bit ambiguous, but the poor blind candidates are those who
PBCs.
They're PBCs. They seek entrance into this ancient and honorable order, and the doings facilitates that by, well, let's say, letting them see the other side of the mountain.
Okay, they call it an initiation as well.
An initiation.
Yes. But that's pretty much a secret. But there is a public aspect to this process. And you know, I've been doing shows on some of the other fraternal organizations and maternal organizations in the community. We've had the Masonic Lodge, and they've been on my show. We've had a discussion with the Odd Fellows. All of these organizations have roots going back into the 1850s here in Mariposa.
Yes.
And in the Gold Rush.
Yes.
The clampers are very much part of that social order. And these organizations have a specific role that they played in the community. They were here before law and order. They were here before civilization. And what they did in this community and other communities like us was create civilization. In the Clamper motto, they talk about protecting the widows and orphans. And
That's right. That's right.
And that credo has a social implication.
Well, the clampers, when the order first arrived in California, it arrived about the same time as the Odd Fellows and the Masons. Well, in the early parts of the Gold Rush, some of these fraternal orders were the people were looking at them with a little bit of suspicion. So the clampers decided to, well, let's say, mock these orders. They could not, a lot of these clampers could not trace their lineage back to Europe, so they couldn't join the Oddfellows or the Masons. But they wanted some camaraderie of their own. And all the gold miners in California became clampers. And because there was no other social network, social security network, they actually became the social security system. They took care of the widows of the miners that died in the mines, and they took care of the orphans, and hence the name, the moniker for the protection of widows and orphans. And they actually supported them.
That was a legitimate social role. That wasn't just a...
Right, and the other very important thing about the clampers in the early gold rush days is they provided law and order where there was no law and order. So, in a word, they were the vigilante system.
And in modern society, they've taken on a little different role.
They have morphed into a
I like that word, morphed.
into an organization that that recognizes history of California that would otherwise be forgotten. So we pick and choose lesser known areas of history. We do the research. We raise the funds for a monument and a historical plaque. And we see to it that these vestiges of California history are not forgotten.
Well, I think that this probably goes a little deeper than that, because what they do is connect a historical event with a geographical place. And that's what a plaque is. When you go someplace and see a monument and it says that this is where the Fremont Fort was, or this is the historic community of Bridgeport, or this is the old town of Agua Fria, these are living monuments to historical events, places that that are really significant.
That would otherwise have been passed by and forgotten.
Yes, and that's you know, when they talk, I've heard jokes about us as being a historical drinking society or a drinking historical society. But really, truly, the historic preservation, monuments, and getting the story out of detailing and describing our roots as a society, as residents of this community, that's a really important function, because there's some places that can't connect with their past as well as we can.
And you know, some people they refer to the clampers as a mocking society or a humorous society, and we do take ourselves lightheartedly. But the only thing that the clampers do take seriously is their history.
Yes, and I know that for a fact, because I've said a couple of inappropriate things from time to time that were not accurate, and sharply corrected. So if you want to start a fight with a clamper, be inaccurate in one of your descriptions of a historical event or place. At any rate, we have a doings coming up.
Yes,
we have
we do.
a plaquing in Hornitos. Hornitos is a significant community in our county. Has deep legends. Joaquin Murrieta, of course, has been linked to the history of Hornitos. The plaquing that we're doing in Hornitos is going to recognize the plaza
Adobe.
and Manuela's Saloon, and talk a little bit about the formation of the community.
Of Hornitos itself. Well, Hornitos itself was initially a Hispanic community. The name Hornitos is thought to have come from either their burial mounds or actually the little ovens that they had. In fact, Hornitos means little ovens, and there are some examples of those around the cemetery, the Catholic cemetery. And it was a rip-roaring, it was called the wickedest place on earth back in the early gold rush.
Hornitos had more people in it as a mining camp than the Pueblo of LA, as I understand it.
Yes, it did. And Legend has
kinda
it that
changed now.
Joaquin Murrieta was indeed one of the bandits that frequented that area. Um, and he was known to visit the Fandango Hall that still exists there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna talk about it a little bit, we're gonna monument it, and, the public is invited to this?
We invite the public to the plaquing, and it's going to take place at 9 o'clock Saturday morning.
Uh-huh.
And
this is pretty colorful.
yes, you'll get to see the clampers in their full unregalia, as it were.
Unregalia, that's something like what we're doing here?
Yes. Yeah.
So, then after the plaquing, should be 10:30?
Around that time.
Then we're going to retreat,
We'll retire to May Rock
May Rock.
for our doings, for our initiation of the poor blind candidates.
And May Rock has kind of got an interesting history. It connects with the Clampers in a very special way. That was John C. Fremont's family's, the May Rock for May Day celebrations, picnic area.
So John C. Fremont's wife, Jessie Benton Fremont, would take a lot of the local natives for May Day dances. Prior to it being called May Rock, it was called Tower Rock.
Uh-huh.
But it's one of the largest outcropping of courts up and down the California Motherlode area.
Mhm.
And you can see it from the highway. It's a sight to behold.
It is. At any rate, the public is not invited to the, that is a secret.
Unless you're a male 18 or over and you're sponsored by a clamper to become to be accepted as a PBC, and then we'll see if you make it to the other side of the mountain.
I have a couple of boys who served with my son in Afghanistan who are going to be joining us.
Oh, great.
They've listened to me talk about the Clampers for the last 4 or 5 years, including their service overseas, and they came out here and they're joining the Clampers as a member of MATUCA 1849. And just before we leave, MATUCA means what?
MATUCA, our chapter encompasses 3 counties. MA is for Mariposa, TU represents Tuolumne, CA, Calaveras County.
Okay.
MATUCA, the 3 counties. We have one plaquing each year in each county, so we plaque
That's a lot of plaques.
3 a year.
And we have a lot of history to monument.
We sure do. Yeah, we're very rich in Gold Rush history that still has yet to be recognized.
And another thing I want to bring up, you're involved with the Mariposa History Center,
Yes, I am.
and you're a member of the board,
I am.
and you're a writer.
Written a few, not as many as some of our other board members.
So could we talk a little bit about, just for a second or two, what your main focus is in
Well, right now I just finished a book on the history of the stamp mill, tracing the roots of this particular ore reduction machine back to China. I have a small booklet on what would have been the electric train to Yosemite, the Merced train, the Yosemite Valley Railway was going to be electric at one time.
Oh, really?
And there's a neat story behind that. And my special interest is Mid-Pines and the Whitlock Mining District and the history of that area.
Okay. And your books and your writings are available at the History Center?
They're available at the History Center.
At any rate, Ron, I really appreciate you coming and
Okay,
joining
brother.
me today. And we'll be seeing you Saturday.
See you at the doings.
And for you folks out there, I hope you can make it out to Hornita Saturday morning, because this is really something special to see. And the story about our community, our history, really comes to life at these Clamper festivities. So thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.